We were not. Okay. All right. Welcome to the Pulpwood Queen channel. I'm Tracy Carnes, reminding everyone who hasn't to please hit the subscribe button to not miss a minute of the Pulpwood Queen's lively discussions and videos right here on the Pulpwood Queen channel. And now the Pulpwood Queen herself, Happy L. Murphy. Yay!
Thank you, Tracy. Well, we had a tornado come through here, and I've been dealing with the damages ever since. But my internet, if it goes out, just hang on and rejoin because it'll keep recording as long as I've got it on record. So here we go, Barbara. We are really excited to have you here tonight. We're going into the end of the year. So we've got some of the best authors out there right now with your Nowhere to Goodbye. I tell you, you're a natural born storyteller, and I'm loving your blogs. They're so personal and enlightening. It gives us a big clue to your upbringing, and your mom sounds like she was a doozy.
She was a doozy.
Yeah. So what did your dad, I mean, your mom and your dad, what was the dynamics with them? Do you have brothers and sisters? I'm trying to remember.
I had a brother.
Yeah.
He's deceased, but I did have one brother.
So, and were you close in the same age?
He was 18 months younger than me. So yeah.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
very close.
That's really close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, well, we're going to be talking about your book, but I want to know a little bit more about your background too, because the one thing about bringing in the authors to our online book club meetings is we really want people to know who you are, why you became a writer. Were you a big reader when you were a kid? What was the thing that got you excited about writing?
Well, I was always an avid reader. Always. And I always wrote little stories, and I have always wanted to be a writer. So I think the one kind of goes with the other. And it's just, I would just lock myself away in my room and just fall into a whole nother world.
Were you a big reader first and then you decided you wanted to be a writer, or how did that evolve?
I was obviously a reader first, and I've always read outside of my own like age level. I always read. My mother belonged to the Book of the Month Club.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So she got all of the books, and I always read her books. So that was just, and then I just would just be in another world when I read. So I just love that. And I love the idea of telling stories. And I'm Italian. So I grew up in a family that was always telling stories. So I did that also. And then I just started writing them down.
Wow. Did you have a favorite author that you tried to emulate?
No, I don't think so. I was very eclectic in what I read, and whatever my mother picked for Book of the Month, that's what I read. And
my kids did that too, but I can remember reading Valley of the Dolls way too young.
Oh, I did too.
It was a big book, and I was fascinated with it, and East of Eden and all these really too advanced. I mean, I had a fourth grader come into the bookstore one time, and they wanted to check out Gone with the Wind because it got 25 points on the accelerated readers program. I go, I really don't think you're quite ready to be reading Gone with the Wind. It's pretty gruesome, the Civil War battle scenes and things. So, well, that's great. And these stories, you haven't written a memoir, have you?
No.
Oh, here's Suzanne Kamada coming in from Japan. The one thing about authors is I always want to know the backstory. So when you started telling your stories this week about your mom and how she was such a flirt and how she got on a plane, and ended up dating this guy that
Oh,
she
she
met
did.
on the
Yeah.
plane. You hear about those stories, but I never really heard it from anybody I actually knew. So what was that like for you as a child watching your mom?
Well, this was when I was an adult.
Oh,
Okay, my dad was my mother was in her 80s when she did that.
it's priceless.
um, so my dad had died, and my mother lived in Florida, and she was flying back from Pennsylvania to go to back home to Florida,
Cool.
and she just met this man in the airport. And it turned out that they lived very close to each other in Florida. He was coming home from visiting his family, and they started dating, and they dated for quite some time.
Oh my goodness. That's
Yeah.
just
So, and
incredible.
she just was, she never wanted to get married again, but she did like to go out. She liked to date.
And how long is your mom's not living now, right?
No, no. As I said, she'd be over 100
Yeah,
now.
103 or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's, you know, our mamas are always such an influence on our lives and everything. Was your dad a reader?
Not fiction.
Not fiction.
Not fiction. My father read all kinds of travel journals, and he just loved to know everything about the world, but he never read fiction.
You know, it's really interesting because when I was a kid, I read both boys' stories, girls' stories. It didn't matter to me. I just devoured everything. But boys tend to always get encouraged to work with their hands. You know, they're always mowing the yard or working on a car or doing these things. But there's such great stories out there. But yet men get the most attention in the reading world when they do write books. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it is, and it is interesting.
Well, you know, they always say, well, she writes women's fiction, but they never say he writes men's fiction. And I'm very aware of those distinctions because I think it sets a tone for us when we grow up about entering into this. It's, you know, always been a male dominated art form, but yet the biggest readers in the country are women.
Yeah, yeah,
I was just reading a poll the other day that said the biggest reading audience in the country is baby boomers, women. They have the biggest buying power, and then so many of the books are hard for us to relate to because they're about young girls or, you know, getting married or finding the right you know, boyfriend or whatever. And so I always look for stories like yours. It's one I had not heard before. And then I was reading about this morning about and about how your friend's granddaughter got this. I'd never heard of this disease before, and it usually hits elderly men. Is that correct?
well, it hits middle-aged men.
Middle age.
Although I know 4 people who have died from glioblastoma. That's the brain tumor. 2 of them were children, and the other 2 were middle-aged women.
Wow.
So it is a really devastating disease, and they have recently come up with a vaccine that is created from the cells of the person's body.
Oh, wow.
And they are using that. And there's Linda. And they're having some success with that in testing. It's amazing. The people who have read my book, they still contact me to either tell me their stories about loved ones that have died from this disease, or they tell me about things that are happening in the research world where they are finding things that possibly will be able to create a cure. It's a devastating, it's an absolutely devastating disease. And I just got really hooked up in it, really from watching my friend and the fact that her son was an oncologist and he couldn't, he tried everything he could. He got his daughter into all kinds of clinical trials. He tried any type of research things that they could do, and she didn't live more than, I think, a year.
Oh, it's so sad. I'm so sorry to hear that story. But I think it's important that you did write the book, because so many times, if we're unaware of something, the fear of not knowing is almost greater than what we know. Like Iris Rainier Dart wrote a book. She wrote Beaches, and then she wrote a book about her. She had a family member who had schizophrenia, and that was just never discussed. And then she wrote a book, a fictional book about it. And all of a sudden, when you start addressing things like Me Too, or anything to do Black Lives Matter, all of a sudden people start paying attention and having the conversation. So really, it's a great book to start that conversation. And what were you hoping to gain from writing this story? I know it was really calling to you, that it was important that you write it, but what did you think might happen from it? I'm curious.
I could get rid of my anger.
Oh,
Angry.
oh,
I
that's
was so angry about this disease.
yeah.
And when I finished writing the book, I had some critique partners, all authors,
Yes.
and I sent my manuscript to several authors to critique before I started searching for a publisher. And my friend called me, an author, and she said, I can't read your book. She said, my mother was just diagnosed with glioblastoma. And part of what makes me angry about this disease is it's considered to be very rare, but it isn't.
Oh.
It isn't rare. And so I was angry. Anger is what caused me to write the book. Anger is what, writing the book is what helps me get rid of the anger.
Mm-hmm. That's why they always tell you to journal, because when you journal, you figure things out, So, got a little background. Barbara, you might have to speak up a little bit.
Okay, I'll try.
There. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, there's somebody having a conversation in the background. Does anybody have their Facebook open? Sometimes that causes this backlash if you have your Facebook open. There we go. It's gone. You're back. Okay. But how long did it take you to write the book?
Well, actually, it took about 5 years, because the first couple of years I was so busy doing everything wrong, and until I finally learned how to write a book, then maybe it took me 2 years from the time I wrote it to the time I got it under contract with a publisher.
I think we need to have How to Write a Book 101, as a college
course. I think that's coming up.
I really do. I really think that is important. There's all kinds of writing workshops everywhere, but almost every author I interview tells me exactly the same thing. It took me so long because I didn't know what I was doing, and I had to learn how to do it. It took me 6 years to get my book from start to finish, and I was working full time with 2 small children. So yeah, it's difficult, but I think the busier you are, the more you can get things done.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been out there for a little while, so you're getting lots of feedback from readers and talking about it. And what's the most interesting thing that's happened since the book came out?
Well, probably the most interesting thing that happened was, first of all, I was up in years when the book published, and then it hit USA Today, which was a real surprise to
It's
me.
great.
And I've published since then a second book, and I'm working on my third book. So
I'm
I don't.
so happy for you that
Thank
because
you.
most authors I talk to nowadays, they get started after a first and sometimes even second or third career. So good for you. And it's just, I'm kind of getting to that place where I really want to start writing again too, but life keeps getting in the way. This COVID thing has made it very difficult for all of us. We're so isolated, but thank God for Zoom, and we've got a lot of people for you here tonight.
I know. I'm
I'm
thrilled.
so excited. Thank you, everybody, for coming and supporting Barbara because she's a wonderful person and a great storyteller. And so you have a second book that has come out?
Yes, my second book is actually the prequel to Nowhere Near Goodbye, and it literally I think I talk about this maybe in tomorrow's blog, but when I got a publisher for Nowhere Near Goodbye, my editor literally cut half the book. She said I had to rewrite 50% of the book, and so I ended up oh, yeah.
Let's stop just a minute. Everybody mute except for me and Barbara because we're getting a lot of feedback from your conversation in next rooms or something. So looks like, yeah, see if we can. There we go. Thank you. Can you hear me now, Barbara?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yay. Okay. We'll turn it back on when we have the open conversation and hopefully we won't have as much feedback. But well, I'm excited and you're already mad at work on a third book, huh?
Yes, I am, which is totally different than the first two. So I'm excited about it.
Great. That's great. Well, I just got an email from Tracy, and it looks like I'm not sure. It's Donna's feed. Donna, is there a Donna? Do I have a Donna on here?
Yeah, Donna.
Yeah, Donna, it was her feed. So as long as she's muted, we can hear you perfectly. So
Okay,
thank you,
great.
Donna. And so did you have any say in the cover or?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And actually, for both of my books, the covers are very poignant scenes from the book. For Nowhere Near Goodbye, there's a scene in the book where the main character's husband leaves her and takes their little girl, and the scene is that she is looking out the window at a winter snowfall,
Thing?
and
Yeah.
the boot steps from as the father and the child are walking away from the house, and that's the cover of Nowhere Near Goodbye. So I was very pleased that I made that suggestion, and they really
And they listened. How
yeah,
wonderful for you.
yeah. Same
That's
with the second book. So I've been very lucky that way.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So, in this process, did you take a lot of classes? Did you go to workshops? What was your process on getting up to par on getting a book done? Because
Well,
everybody wants to know these questions. That's what they ask me all the time. How did they do it?
I after I first wrote the book, when I didn't know what I was doing, and a good friend of mine who read the book said I really needed to rethink this whole process. So then I started taking classes. I'm a member of Women's Fiction Writers Association, and they offer a lot of classes. And I signed up for everything I could take. I bought all the craft books. I did a lot of stuff with Donald Mass and with different, there's a lot of good,
Kitty.
there's a lot of good information out there. I'm a big fan of Save the Cat. And
Yes,
yeah,
that's a good one. I just recently got that one myself.
yeah, that's actually one of my favorites. And so that's what I did. And I just learned. And my reading has changed so much because every book I read now, I study. It's like I'm continually learning through what I read, which I think is a fabulous way to learn. And I find, it either gets me thinking in different ways, or, it's like a different approach.
Right.
And it's just very helpful.
Do you see things visually when you write? Are you seeing it like I see everything I read like a film? It's like
No,
playing in my mind.
what I do is I hear it all in my head.
Ah, you hear the voices.
I hear the voices, and they're with me all the time.
I've had a lot of authors. I've had a lot of authors tell me they do hear voices. In fact, Jamie Ford put a post up the other day, and he goes, "All authors are mentally ill because they're talking to people that are imaginary." And I really think, but I think it's our way of processing the world, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a way that we can process and figure things out, like you did about your anger. That's amazing. That's amazing. So you're not angry anymore.
No, I'm not angry. Actually, it's been quite a journey. I have talked to so many people who have been affected with either a loved one or a child, a mother, a father, or a husband. And listening to them talk, it's just been very cathartic. It's just been, makes me feel not quite so alone in my feelings with this. And even though it wasn't, I didn't have this disease, my child didn't have this disease, but watching someone that you care about and then seeing all these other people, it's just been amazing. But one of the things, the thing that scared me the most about writing this book was the research, which was a lot. I did a lot of research, and it was the only thing that I worried about in terms of not getting right. Once I got down the basics of writing a book, the thing I was worried about the most was not getting the research right, or not presenting my characters in a true to life form in a medical world. And I've heard from doctors and nurses that I absolutely did get them right, and that the researchers that really come up with wonderful techniques and new processes are the people who devote their entire lives to their research. And that's how I presented my main character in Nowhere Near Goodbye. I mean, this was a woman who was a doctor, she was a mother, she was a wife, and she literally gave up everything. She lost her family, and of course, all of that's fiction. The only true part of the book is the disease itself.
Right.
And the research that I included in it, which of course you do a ton of research and then you only add little bits, just enough to make the story seem real. But apparently I got my characters down pretty well, because the professional people who have contacted me and said, that really is, they knew doctors like that. They that would just devote everything they had to their research.
Absolutely. Well, good for you, because I think a good research, whether you're doing a horse, is important for nonfiction, but for fiction, it's important too, because you don't want to get something wrong, because then if you get one little thing wrong, then they're going to question everything.
Yes,
So
that's
that's
what worried me.
well, and that's another reason why more people write more fiction than nonfiction, because you have a little bit of artistic license with that too, creating dialogue and different things. But where did you research? Did you actually go to doctors and nurses, the medical community, or did you just get online
Well,
and find?
I started with the library,
Yes.
to the point where the librarian started looking at me in a way that she thought maybe I had cancer. And then I started doing research online,
Yeah.
to the extent that Johns Hopkins contacted me and asked me if I was a doctor. And I said no, but I was, doing a lot of research for a book. And so they included me with their weekly clinical trial
Oh, that's
emails.
wonderful.
Yeah. And what was fascinating about that is my book was set in the it started in the 1970s, but the cancer diagnosis didn't come up until like 1981. And because the research on glioblastoma has been so slow, there wasn't much of a difference between what I found 25 years ago
Oh man.
than what there was today. Yes, but now, other than now, they are just currently really, really, really making strides. They started using polio vaccines, they started using um, all types of vaccines, and now this latest research has come up with creating a vaccine from the cells of the patient's own cells, and creating a vaccine to use um, to stop the tumor from progressing. And they're moving away from surgery because, and I had talked about this in my book, the problem with trying to remove a glioblastoma is that the tentacles, yes, it goes out and it goes into the healthy brain, parts of the brain, and you can't get it all out.
Right. It's amazing, in just the past few years, how many medical things have changed. I mean, just look how fast they had to work for COVID.
Yeah.
And, I'm still kind of in shock over some people I've lost that were healthy people. And, and I think, why some people and not others, they, they give these statistics. Well, it's because they were overweight. Well, the people I know weren't. They were healthy, but they did not get the vaccine. So, you
Yeah.
know, I'm a big proponent on getting the vaccine. If you've ever seen anybody that had polio, you know how important vaccines are. So, um, uh, but as we go ahead in the future, I think it's kind of like Michael J. Fox did that book on his disease. Now everybody's doing all they can to figure out how to do that. So maybe this resurgence of this being known will get more people on board and more people contributing to we can't cure the common cold or cancer, and we've been dealing with it for so long. It's amazing that there's people still here. It's,
That's true.
really, when you think about it. I'm watching a film right now on Netflix based on a man's real life story about working the slums in India. And it's talking about cholera. And I just thought, oh my gosh, they're still dealing with diseases like that in these countries that have such abject poverty. Um, we kind of live in a little bubble, you know, sometimes. And now we definitely are in a little bubble because of COVID. But I think the world is getting to be more aware, and thankfully, because of books like yours, they will. Now, what's the title of the second book?
The second book is called My Secret to Keep.
Yes, My Secret to Keep. That's
Mhm.
great. And we'll be looking forward to I've got to read that. And we've got the third book coming up, and it's a totally different subject, huh? You decide to get away from, it's time to
Yeah.
put that aside and move on. And
Oh,
can you talk a little bit about it?
sure. I I find that I like to write about something that interests me. Oh, thank you, Betty.
Oh,
Um, I know someone who has been a surrogate 3 times, and
oh my
I
goodness.
find this fascinating. It's like
Yeah.
the very last thing I would ever do, only because I wasn't so thrilled about being pregnant myself. The babies were great. The whole pregnancy was just not a lot of fun. But this woman has her own child, and she's been a surrogate 3 times. And I
My
kept
goodness.
thinking about this, and I decided that I wanted to write a book about surrogacy as being the major part of the story. And I wanted to, I did a lot of research. I interviewed a lot of women. It's amazing how many women I've discovered who have been surrogates.
Really?
Yeah. And everyone had wonderful things to say about the whole process.
Really?
But yes, and I found that fascinating, and I managed to talk to a couple of people who actually work in surrogacy centers, and they're very protective
Yeah.
of the entire process, and I understand that, and I respect that. But so I felt like I was kind of, my hands were tied behind my back, in terms of, like, I was initially thinking all these, like, fabulous things I could do. And then I realized how important it is to not do anything that would reflect poorly on the process. So I have this, this book is different in that it's a two-person point of view. It's a husband and wife, and the wife wants to be a surrogate, and her husband thinks it's an okay idea, until the embryo is implanted and she's actually pregnant, and then he starts having really bad feelings about it. He's just like, he's not happy. He feels like, and that's combined with some things that happen at his job. And so I take the man, even though it's a two-person point of view, the man is really the primary protagonist. And I take this guy from being a really nice guy, someone that you would just really love, and I just make him so miserable and so nasty. And then, of course, at the end, I bring him back and I make him nice again. But I've had so much fun with this guy. Um, and and it's just, I don't know, it just came to me, and I found that, along with writing, when I wrote Nowhere Near Goodbye, the easiest character to write was Ned, who was the chief oncologist, who was Emma's boss, and he was a real not nice guy. And I
Mhm.
had a lot of fun writing him. And apparently, I have no trouble writing from the male point of view. So I'm having a lot of fun with the book, and I'm hoping that it does well. I'm hoping to shop this book after I published um, Nowhere Near Goodbye. I got an agent, and I'm hoping to shop this book and see where it'll take me.
Right. That's great. Well, I want to open it up. So if you, um, don't everybody unmute, but if you have a question or a comment or something, you can unmute and speak, and then we'll just take turns. How's that? Yeah. Anybody want to begin?
Yeah, I have a how intimidated were you to write a doctor? Because I mean, I tend to write what I know, and I know that you did a lot of research. So I was just kind of curious, were you intimidated at all to write that?
No, I wasn't, which is kind of funny,
That's
right?
awesome.
The funny thing, people, and it's generally people maybe a generation above me who um, are intimidated by medical professionals. I worked um, in a medical profession. I was in a car accident, and that involved months and months and months of hospitalization and surgeries. And I am not intimidated in the least by doctors. I don't, yeah, I guess, and that's just me, but I understand what you're saying. And it's a very good question, because that never even dawned on me. Like, if you had said this to me when I first started writing it, I
Yeah.
might have then become intimidated by doctors.
No, I think it's awesome, that you set out and did it and got it so right. I mean, even Johns Hopkins is sending you material.
Yeah,
I think that speaks volumes.
It does.
It was a real surprise to me. And I mean, finally, I had like just volumes of information.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing. Anybody else have a comment or a question? Yep. Let's see who's going to unmute next.
Oh, I do.
Okay, Sarah.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, great to be back after my travels and catching bugs on the way and everything. I was really interested in the novel about your gender switch with, the workaholic mother and the stay-at-home father, even though he had a career too, which seemed to me just get stomped on, and like he had to stay home with the kid. So was that a deliberate tactic of you to say, women can be obsessive workaholics as well as men?
Yes, as a matter of fact. And because I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a firm believer in absolute equality, and that women can make the same dumb mistakes men do. And women can be driven. And that was another source that really caused a lot of conversation. People picked up on that. People either didn't like it. They didn't believe women could be that driven. But the majority of people, men and women, totally got it and totally saw it as me making a statement. I I wasn't I wasn't intentionally making a statement. Like I said, anger is what drove me to write the book. But maybe that anger was on more than one thing, because I've always felt that women are not created or treated equally. I think it's a struggle we're still working on. And I think that's
Definitely.
ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous that, all these years after the vote, we're still, not considered equal.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of what I believe or what's important to me ends up coming out in my writing, and sometimes it's not it's not on the surface, but deep down it comes out, and I don't even see it until somebody points it out to me, or I don't see it till I'm done writing and I read it all, and then I see it.
Then you see what was in it. By the way, I'm having a real hard time hearing you, Barbara.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I must have, I don't know. Sometimes I have problems with getting my voice across.
Yeah,
Not any better?
that's a little better. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Yeah, appreciate your answer. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else want to?
I
Speak
saw
up.
another
I have a
hand there,
question.
yeah.
I have
Yeah.
a question.
Oh, hey, Jeffrey.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good.
Good to see
I
you.
love that bow tie, by the way.
Thank you
We
so much.
love bow ties.
for
Oh,
just
yes.
you. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Very
Love it.
snazzy. I love that.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And so, Barbara, I'm curious, a couple of things that you mentioned during your talk about, writing these characters that turn from, I guess, very kind people to demons almost. And you talked about, sort of learning the process of writing. I'm interested in your process. Do you see the arc of a story from beginning to end before you begin? Or do you start it and let these characters take you where they will? What is your process? I'm interested in that.
Oh, my process is convoluted. Let me tell you, you do not want to emulate my process. I get an idea about the theme of what I want to write about, the thing that's important to me. Okay, like in Nowhere Nearby, it was cancer. In My Secret to Keep, it was part of one of the characters that came from Nowhere Near Goodbye, and a secret that made the relationship within other characters that was important. In this third book, it's the surrogacy. But so I see that, and then I start to see people, and then I start writing an outline. So I try to keep myself organized with an outline, and before no time, I am off, and I am just, my people just take over. And so it's convoluted. What I have found recently that has helped me a great deal is I write for each chapter, I write a sentence or two that tells me what that chapter was about, so that I can actually read that and go through and follow it to make sure that my flow is good. And that's helped me the most. I do a lot of rewriting, which slows me up. I know if I wrote better outlines, I would probably not have to rewrite as much. But I find the rewriting is where I can add all of the layers that make a book so beautiful. So I don't regret the way I write. Yes, I wish I wrote a little faster, but each book becomes a little faster. But it also becomes a little harder, because the more I know makes me think more about how I need to write something as opposed to how I just want to write something. So it's convoluted.
Well,
I
thank
hope that
you.
helps.
It
It
does.
does.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I enjoyed hearing your process.
Yeah. Anybody else? Thanks, Jeffrey. Anybody else?
I could listen to his voice all day.
I
He has a beautiful
know.
voice.
Jeffrey's just jumped on board with us. He's got a wonderful book, and it will be a book club selection coming up. So he'll be at
Wow.
Girlfriend Weekend. I'm very excited. He's getting buzz.
Read it now. I have to read it.
Yeah, Red Clay Susie. All right. And
Weekend.
you're going to do an event with Robert Waltney coming up at Foxtail, right?
Yes. Yes. And
That's really great. I just shared it not too long ago.
we,
Anyway, so authors are here. A lot of authors are here, and they're going to want to know, what is your journey been on book touring? Are you doing Zooms? Are you going out? You know, what's the best way that you've done to publicize your book and get people reading it?
Honestly, the best way I have got people interested in me as an author and my books is by promoting other people. I've done blog tours. I've done all kinds of online events. I've done a few bookstores. I've done book fairs, a few in-person things, but mostly it's been virtual for obvious reasons. And but I find the biggest thing that has helped me is that I like other authors. I like to hear about their books. I like to talk about their books. I like to promote their books. And the one thing I've learned is people will read an author's book if they like the author. So
Absolutely.
I try to be the kind of person that, you know, you're going to like.
That's why it's so important that if, you know, when we have our convention, that you're there, because when the book clubs come in and you sit at their table and they get to know you, they're invested. So you build your fan base exponentially, because it's like, and you know, I've been on every side of the book selling table, and I know that the authors that get the most votes for books of the year, which we're voting right now, are the ones that participate the most. And I think when you hear the results and the votes are coming in, and I will tell everybody that just about every single book that I picked this year has gotten votes, but there are some that it's like really becoming apparent, and they're the ones that participate the most. And I don't know how to tell people that, you know, how important it is to engage with, you know, whether you're, you know, on Bookish Road Trip or Blue Sky Chat or, you know, the Pulpwood Queens or whatever, the more you can engage with everybody and get yourself out there, the more, you know, and promoting other authors. It's just, that's just good form. You know, it shows that you're a wonderful person, you know, anybody who does that. So, and if you are an author, you can post every single day on the official Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys book club. Let me know so I can approve it, because right now it's getting pretty crazy because I'm counting votes and finishing up my reading program. But, you know, do vote. And authors, you can vote for yourself in your category. You are a voting member, just like the Academy Awards. So vote, 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 because we've got lots of ties, multiple ties right now. And it's always exciting to see and then hear the authors give their acceptance speech. So we'll be having that coming up too. So Barbara, you know, what is there one particular instance that you can think of that has, you know, where you've sold the most books? That's another thing. Authors go, where can I go where I can sell the most books? And I go, you just go everywhere. What is your advice?
You know, I don't know. I've done really well at book fairs, and I've done really well at bookstores because I get to talk to the readers, the people who come in and, you know, want to know about my book. And I've done really well with in person, which has been unfortunate because it's been so limited. But I would say I also get a lot of interaction on any of the social media platforms. I'm very involved with all of them except TikTok. I haven't
Yeah,
quite gotten into TikTok.
I don't do TikTok, and I'm sorry, but I can't do Goodreads. It's just too much. It's just overwhelming. I don't know how people keep up with it. I mean, I'm already doing 4, so it's really hard. If you ever want to have any sleep, you've
Yeah.
got to pick and choose what is the
It's true.
best for
Absolutely true.
you. Have
Yes,
to pick and choose. But
absolutely.
I'm going to be going around doing the Pulpwood Queen Presents panels at book festivals. So, authors, if you're interested in doing group things, that is a new trend that is really bringing a lot of people to the party. So, the more people that you can get, I know the Pat Conroy Center's doing this. Adriana Trisciani's doing it with her book club. I think people can get more bang for their buck. Sherry Staunch at Main Street Reads is always doing multiple authors, because when you get a group of authors, and I even saw this at the Southern Festival for the book, when there was a group of authors, you have bigger attendance than unless it's somebody like Rick Bragg, if you're not known or anything, partner up with all your author friends and do a group thing, because it really shows that you're paying it forward by helping them. And that's really good and sage advice, Barbara, that you shared. Is I would like to do more, but people have no idea. I got a message yesterday, and it says you're averaging 8 hours a day on the computer. And I go, oh my God,
Yeah, that's
8
a lot.
hours. I feel like I'm on it 24/7, but I am, I take breaks, but that's a long time to be on a computer in a day. So, you have to be really choosy with your time. And I got to get these books read. So,
Yeah.
Kathy,
yeah.
Kathy, I have a question for all the authors,
Sure.
and everyone. I cannot leave a review on Amazon. They
can't
just
either.
will not let me.
They won't let
So
me.
I do Goodreads, and then I always post it on Facebook. And I have a lot of people that I know that pick it up and go from there. And as anyone who's done my Fireside Chat with Author class, which I'm doing again in the spring, those people have really jumped on board too. And I even have a couple of them coming on and doing things too, but, and I will tell you, Grace was one of my authors this last time. And I'm telling you, it was so funny because one of the guys in my class was a former Methodist minister. They knew some of the same people. It was so amazing.
It is.
Go ahead, Grace.
Yeah.
But what platform should I leave? Someone suggested BookBub.
BookBub is very good.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've got to learn how to get onto that one.
Alice Hoffman is a champion for BookBub and Neil Gaiman. So pay attention to that. Goodreads is also, owned by Amazon. Did you know that?
Yeah.
In fact, they put a list of all the books, all the things that they've got under their umbrella now. And but the good news is the big, consortium that was going to do Simon and Schuster and Penguin Putnam is not going to happen. So the more publishers we have, the better it is for everybody, because when you put all your apples in one basket, when they fall, everybody falls. So support your local independents, and put those posts up on Facebook and stuff. But I have authors ask me all the time to review on Amazon. They haven't let me for 3 years now. They just, they put them up and they take them down.
So do they take the Goodreads statistics and use it or not?
Oh yeah, everything they do is it's all done. Yeah. So Google that. What all does Amazon own? You'd be shocked.
Yeah.
No, nothing would surprise me about Jeff Bezos.
It's really crazy. But the best thing I think for all of us, like Barbara said, is word of mouth. If you tell everybody, oh my gosh, you've got to read Barbara's book. And they go, really? Okay, Kathy. Yeah. I mean, Pat Conroy used to stand in line for every single author that would come to Girlfriend Weekend. And the looks on these first book authors' faces when Pat Conroy goes, I'd like to buy your book. Will you sign it? And I don't think half those people cash the checks because they just wanted to frame it. But, be a good citizen, help everybody out. And, and it's important because it's tough times and there's so many people publishing books these days, and really that's why I've always tried to help first book authors, because I knew when I was a sales representative, I'd go out and they'd say, well, who is this guy? And I try to find out everything about them. I go, did you know that they were, they taught at Cornell or what? I go, no, I had no idea. And, the more we hear about your personal lives, Barbara, the more it sells your book, because they want to know that you're real. Everybody puts authors on pedestals. So when they find out that they're just, just like you and me, except with a gift of writing.
That's why, Kathy, when I do my class, what in this little synopsis I put, do you want to know the story behind the story? And
absolutely, that
is what gets everybody, is they find out, and they have loved every one of these authors because they said they're just like us. And I go, no kidding. I love it. And so, but I did a giveaway. Every author that I had on, I gave their book away at the previous week to a class member so they could read the book.
That's so great. And Barbara, you talked about, Save the Cat, and, there's, Stephen King's On Writing. Have you ever heard of Jim Trelease? Trealease. Jim Trelease was a newspaper man, and he wrote a book called Read All About It. And what he did was he'd go and he'd find out the story behind some of the most famous authors, things that you didn't know, kind of like, what was the radio guy that we used to listen to all the time, where, and this is the rest of the story. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of his name? But anyway, he did people like Beatrix Potter. He did the story behind the man who wrote The Red Fern, Where the Red Fern Grows, which he was illiterate. You got to read his books. And that's what made me realize that the more we know about an author, the more we want to read their story. So
it's true. Definitely.
It is true, Barbara. So check out Jim Trelease. He was a newspaper man, and he's got 2 or 3 books. And I have him come to the bookstore. He's a fascinating guy. So if
someone has a question,
can I add something? Yeah. Well, you're talking about the story behind the story, and there's something that I joined. It's called Bublish, Bublish, and every week you can put your ebooks on file with them, and every week you post an excerpt from one of your novels, and then you give a little side thing, the story behind the story, how you wrote it, or
Bublish. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, and it's really a nice little thing just to do and easy to do every week. Other thing I wanted to ask was, you're mentioning that Facebook or Amazon won't let you leave reader reviews. I'm doing it all the time, reviewing other authors' books, and I don't have any trouble. Is there some reason that you're banned, or I've never heard of that?
Well, you can't get a hold of them, but I can tell you in my case, they think it's because people pay me to pick the books.
Oh.
And they do not pay me. The only thing when authors join my book club, I read my members' books first. And I think that is the polite thing to do. If you invest in my book club, I should read your books first, but you don't pay. Nobody pays me to pick their book. Their book has to have merit. So, and all my guidelines are up on my website. But I think
that $2 back now, Kathy.
Huh?
I want that $2 back now.
No, unfortunately, I think if somebody pays you to read it, that's Kirkus Reviews, it lowers the, what I think the fact that you got picked, if you have to buy it, then it doesn't have as much merit, right? So I would rather pick a book just for merit and not for, um, you know, that's just the way I feel. But I don't know about you. Uh, Tell me why, Betty, they won't let you. Have they told you?
They would not, I never got a response back, but someone said maybe they think you're family because they often think
Oh, you
your
always say they're your
family.
cousins.
Yeah, because everybody's calling me cousin Betty now. And so they said, but this happened 2 years ago that I couldn't get on and leave one. And I started sending the emails to them and it still didn't matter. They would not reply back. And so I thought, well, to heck with this, I'll just go on Facebook. More people see my posts on Facebook. And I also take a picture of the book and I just firmly believe in supporting the authors.
That's
So
true. And good for you, because if we all just did that, what a wonderful world it'd be. And that's what I think everybody here is doing. So congratulations to everybody for being literacy supporters. So Barbara, is there any other questions that we have for you?
No, but I have something I wanted to say. And
Okay.
when you were talking earlier, and then we got off on other subjects, when we were talking about what do I think has helped, or what am I doing that helps? And two of the things, and you were talking about doing things with other authors, and that's what jogs my memory. Two of the things, one is Author Talk Network, which is a really fun organization that Grace created. And we have done all kinds of collaborative things, including an ebook that we've put together with Red Penguin Press. And the other thing, that no matter how much I might complain, mostly to Linda, but his bookish road trip has been a great way to meet other authors, to meet lots of readers, to be involved. Those two things are at the very top of my list of things that I have had the privilege, really, of being involved with. And it has been very beneficial, both to me and for me.
Yes. In the 23 years I've been doing this, I've seen a lot of people just come and just be going like gangbusters, and then they're gone, and you think, wow, they were great. What happened? But it's, Oprah, Oprah got more people reading than anybody. She's got her book club going back again, but it's not the same, as when she had her show and stuff. But she's still very vital and very important when she picks books and everything. So I'm hoping that once the world opens back up, I can get out there and start doing a little bit more to help all our authors too, and get them featured at some of these book festivals. And there's some really good ones out there, and had a wonderful time at the Southern Festival of the Book. And this is the first year after Girlfriend Weekend, I'm going to be at Sundance Film Festival with one of my authors that's here, Tracy Carnes, has written a book called Darlings of Sundance, set at Sundance. And we've got filmmakers and, David Patterson's involved. His mother's Catherine Patterson, who wrote Bridge to Terabithia. But we're going to be doing that and I'm going to try to start going to film festivals and letting everybody know about you guys' books, because all these streaming services are looking for stories to serialize. And I go, don't look any further than the Pulpwood Queens. My God, every book should be a film, or at least a series or something. So we're going to try working on that too. And we'll be talking more about it at Girlfriend Weekend. So any other things you want to address, Barbara?
I think I've covered everything.
Well, I'm just so thankful that we made it all the way through and it didn't drop again.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you knew the damage that happened here, you wouldn't believe it. But it's just now, this is the first night I've been on here where I didn't drop multiple times, and I'm having a hard time getting it posted when it does that. So I'll work on that tonight. But we thank you so much. I'm looking forward to your blogs the rest of this week. I know it's Thanksgiving, but a lot of people will be home. So this is your opportunity to let them all know about your book, and hopefully everybody here will be reading.
Well,
So
thank you so much for having me. It's been a great honor.
yay. And just so everybody knows, that's authors, the Sunday before Girlfriend Weekend, we're going to have our Zoom dress rehearsal at 2:00. So we try to bring everybody on that's going to be at Girlfriend Weekend so we can go over all the things that we're doing. And if you have not joined the Pulpwood Queen Party Line to Girlfriend Weekend, that's where I'm going to, after the voting's done, December 1st, I'm going to be posting more things on Amelia Island. So if you have any questions, email me now, because I'm traveling for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so I'll be out of pocket. So before it gets too late, please email me at thepulpwoodqueen@gmail.com. And Barbara, do you have a website, or where do they need to go if they want to continue the conversation?
It is, yes, I do have a website. It's barbaraconreyauthor.com.
Perfect. We can all remember that. I'll put it in the post when I share this on the Pulpwood Queen channel. So thank you, everybody, for joining. I just want to thank you all. I mean, this is a blessing to have this book club during the time of COVID and everything that's been going on, because I would really have been stark raving mad being locked up in this little cabin for all these years. But I can't thank you all enough for showing up from Japan and the Pacific Northwest, and the all the places that you are. So thank you very much. It's a wonderful life when you're a reader, and thank you, Barbara, for sharing your story. I can't wait to read the next one. So get your copies today, and we will be back again after Thanksgiving for Tuesday Night Book Club. Stay tuned. So some of you are in the queue. Have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. And it's all about the story.
For coming.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.